because the power you're supplying, it's electrifying. Here's your look at the brand new NECA Studios Monsterizer. Lights flash, electrodes illuminate, and gears creak as you monsterize the famous monsters of Filmland with a tribute to the original Monsterizers from the 80s. Designed to work with NECA's line of retro glow-in-the-dark monster figures, this fantastic diorama piece will also work with other 7-inch scale figures. While I'm not in the habit of making monsters, but if I was, you'd need the proper tools to do it. Just before we get a closer look, though, at the NECA Monsterizer, first I'd like to thank the folks over at NECA that provided the sample we could have a look at. This is currently over on their site for $79.99. It does, though, say it's an exclusive to the NECA store, at least in the US, with a wide release internationally. I don't know if that means that they're actually releasing or plan to release these in retail, but at least for right now, if you want to get your hands on the Monsterizer, it's on NECA's site as we speak. I'm going to grab the tape measure, of course, and we're going to measure off the Monsterizer, both in its length and also in its height. This is also very much based on the original Remco Mini Monster Monsterizer, which, of course, this one, like with the Mini Monsters, with the Monster Glow-in-the-Dark figures that NECA has been doing and churning out so successfully, the Monsterizer, again, is based on the original Remco release. So, again, as promised, we're going to take the tape measure. We're going to start from one end of the Monsterizer to the other, and from a length standpoint, it's actually going to be about 10 inches of that. Or the Monsterizer is going to be about 24 centimeters long. As for its height, if we go from the bottom and work our way to the top of the lamp, then you're looking at the Monsterizer being about 7¼ inches in height, or about 18 centimeters tall. And what would you likely want to display with your Remco Monsterizer? Well, of course, Remco-inspired figures. Here's what we've already gotten so far from the folks over at NECA when it comes to the glow-in-the-dark Remco Universal Monsters retro figures. We did get ourselves a glow-in-the-dark Frankenstein. We did get as well a mummy. My favorite by far is the Wolfman. And we also did get ourselves a New York Comic Con exclusive glow-in-the-dark Phantom of the Opera. What's omitted right now is the glow-in-the-dark Dracula, which likely would be one of the two characters I'm going to be planning to display with the Monsterizer, both Dracula and Frankie. Now, if you were to compare NECA's Monsterizer with the original one from Remco, there's definitely a lot more paint applications with NECA's. Remco's would have actually more had a simplified design, but the core idea was roughly the same. It was a containment unit that basically had a tabletop, and you would store your monsters inside if you wanted to monsterize them. Remco's would have all been cast in gray plastic and would have had a red cage on the top. NECA's actually matched the colors to the bottom of the base, so the cage for theirs is all painted in the same matching silvers. Some batteries had to be installed first when you get the unit out of the box. The batteries, unfortunately, though, are not included, but they are simply just AA batteries. I've already taken the liberty, in fact, of removing the battery cover just because it was a whole lot easier just to remove it and then show you guys exactly where the batteries are. I'll have to put the battery cover back on and just screw it back in place. But the batteries, though, are located on the bottom of this, overlooking, obviously, the fact I've already taken the liberty of removing the battery cover. There is a screw. That is one of the things, of course, that newer figures and toys, anything that has batteries, really, they have to have now screws. I guess it's one of those mandates. But I did already take the liberty of unscrewing this. I took the battery cover off. I'm just going to leave it off for right now, just to show you guys. It does require 3 AA batteries. Luckily, they're AA's. Even AAA's would have been fine if they had used, say, button cell batteries. Those are a little harder to come by. Not usually one of those things you can probably easily go to Walmart or whatever and pick them up. A lot of times I just pick up the button cell batteries on places like Amazon. But like AA batteries, everybody's got AA batteries, and you only need 3 of them. Once they're housed in place, you actually have yourself, again, the switch. Now, looking for the switch, you may think to yourself, well, would the switch be on the bottom? Would it be on the side? Whereabouts would the switch would be? The most creative of places they chose to put the switch happens to be the switch on what full-size Monsterizer would be. It's actually this lever right here. So clever. You'd actually flip this up to activate the lights. Just before doing that, though, one thing I did also want to show you as well is while the back here doesn't open up, likely because it's so close in quarters to the battery compartment, the other side, on the other hand, though, does open up. There's a little wheel that can rotate. And if you take it from the top of the handle here, you can pull this whole side compartment out, and you got yourself a little bit of drawer space. I guess if you want to store yourself some extra figure accessories, anything really could be stored in there as well. Body parts. Hey, if you're in the business of making monsters, then of course you can store some extra body parts in there as well. And that just, like I said, slides back in place. Other things that we also have here as well is, of course, the main cage does open up too, and that's going to be storing inside your monster. Now, there are these straps here that the original Remco release would have also had these straps. I think they would have been either in green or black. The straps are made of fairly soft plastic. Looking at it, you would think that you'd have to unfasten these in order to get the monster underneath. Again, like, it doesn't look like you can detach these. It doesn't seem, from what I can see, a way to actually open these up. But what you could so easily do is just take yourself your monster. So we're going to use Frankenstein's monster for obvious reasons. Just take the monster, slide it in feet first, and when you have it far enough down, just kind of put it body back down and just slide it back in place. That's all you really have to do. It's a little loose in quarters at the top here. Again, it doesn't look to be the case that you can tighten these off unless I'm missing something here. It does look like there's an excess of plastic on the bottom of it, but from what I've tried, I can't seem to tighten these at all. So you're going to have a little bit of looseness on the bottom. And of course, from there, you can take yourself the cage and just drop the cage over top of Frankenstein that way. Now, there is a wheel on the side. The original Remco would have had a wheel as well. This would have been done in green plastic. I think there's also a second version that was released as well that had this in black. But the wheel works that this basically will telescopically move out the tabletop here. I will say, though, it's pretty loud. So as you're rotating this, they market this on the box as it creaks. I mean, it literally is just a ratcheted joint. And as I move it to this side, you guys can get a better idea. You basically move the tabletop out. You would put your monster in, of course, if you wanted to. You can also leave the cage up really too, if you want to. And then you would just crank this back in. It's not the most quietest of things. This would not be something you'd want to be playing with late at night while everybody's trying to sleep in bed. So with your monster in place, like I said, we can take ourselves the cage. There is actually a little light source there on the top for the lamp. These will light up as well. The little electrodes will also light up on the sides there as well. But going back to what I had mentioned earlier, there's a switch here on the side. So there's a wire that runs to the lamp, so that's going to light it up as well. You could, for all intents and purposes, take the lever and move it all the way to the top, and that's going to illuminate everything. If you want to have fun, though, it actually has different stages of light up. So if we start from the bottom, which is obviously the off position, and you can see there's some reading meters and stuff like that, and that really cool little readout display down below here as well, which it looks to be almost like a heart rate or mental, like, brain rate. But you can take, like, the lever here, and if you bring it up once, you can feel basically as you're moving it that it hits like a ratcheted joint. There we go. So when you turn that on the first time, it will light these all up. So you got yellow, you got red, you got green, and then these all illuminate as well. You hit it again, and I want to just make sure I hit this again. Now you've got yourself a lamp light, and you can see it's illuminating down on Frankie's face. Very bright also as well. When you go all out, though, and you bring the lever all the way to the top, well, actually, there is one more step. Bring it a little higher up from there. And you've got yourself now the electrodes. They're all illuminated here in green. Again, very bright. The last step, as already given it away completely, if you bring it all the way up, it keeps everything illuminated, it keeps these illuminated, but now these will flash. I think, first of all, that's neat, the fact that there's several stages of illumination, that you don't always have to go right to the very end, that if you only want to just have a few of the things lit up at once, say, for example, like, you don't want to have this flashing all the time. If you want to just drop it down a notch, you would just have that as a solid green light. You bring it down one more, and now you turn these off with only just the lamp light, and only with just the readout console display down here all lit up. And again, if you want to save the power on the lamp, just turn that off, and then this would be the only thing that would illuminate. I think that is really cool, the fact that NECA would actually have several stages of this, so you don't always have to rely on everything being illuminated all at the exact same time. Again, like, this does open up as well. You could, for all intents and purposes, always keep this up too. Like, it doesn't feel like it's going to be dropping down necessarily on the monster that's on top of the table. Speaking of the table, though, I know we didn't spend a whole lot of time actually showing you guys this, but some really nice wood grain finish. And it's been well painted too. It's definitely a step up, an elevated step from what we got from the original Remco release in the 80s. Of course, whether you decide to display this with Frankenstein, or again, the whole idea with the mini monsters is that you can incorporate any of the monsters that Remco were doing at the time. Again, you got yourself the Wolfman. I really, really want to get my hands on the glow-in-the-dark Dracula solely just because, well, obviously, not only because it doesn't bear a resemblance to Bela Lugosi, it's just a straight-out Dracula, But also as well, I think it's going to go really well with the Monsterizer. From at least what I have, we are also as well getting ourselves a San Diego Comic-Con release glow-in-the-dark, kind of Remco-inspired Nosferatu, which I want to get my hands also on as well. I mean, this is a great throwback to the original toy. I never had the original Monsterizer that Remco released. As I did say, though, in a couple of the reviews of these glow-in-the-dark figures, I may have picked up the occasional Remco, but it wasn't at retail level. I feel like I probably picked up a couple at a garage sale or a yard sale and probably picked it up not even knowing what the line was. Going back now and remembering those figures that I had in my collection, again, the one or two of them that I had, I really wish that I held on to them because, again, now they're going for crazy money online. Love that the idea that NECA not only took the idea and ran with getting retro Remco figures, but finally that we also got ourselves a diorama playset that goes along with it as well. The fact that we get ourselves the Monsterizer updated in paint scheme, updated as well. The fact it does have lights, it doesn't have sounds, which I guess kind of could have been fun if they could have had pulsating sounds. But at the very least, the fact it does have light up illumination here in the front, and that the diodes, the electrodes, could also light up as well. I think it's just a fantastic set. Not all that expensive either, really. I mean, like, if you were to pick this up over on NECA's website, which is, as far as I know, is the only place where the Monsterizer is available right now, it's going for like $79.99 or about $80 even. So again, for that, if you are a big fan of Universal Monsters, whether you were familiar with the stuff we were getting from Remco before, or you just like the stuff that we get now, not to say that the Monsterizer has to necessarily be displayed with the stuff from Remco. If ideally, though, you just like to display it with the Universal Monsters Frankenstein monster, both variations that we've gotten of him and the one from Bride of Frankenstein, it's a great little diorama playset to go along with those as well. When NECA was first starting to do their Remco Universal Monsters retro-inspired figures, I was wondering, though, how far down the rabbit hole the company would go. Anyone that was in the know and collecting the Remco stuff we were getting from the 80s knows that the company was very dedicated to doing a line of mini monsters and things that went with the monsters as well. The company produced things like vinyl carrying cases, which was always the thing that figures back in the 80s would have. If you had a figure line, you'd have a carrying case that went along with it. But Remco thought outside the case, so to speak, because their cases also served to be opened up as activity centers, with open and closing casket lids, for example, that would go perfect with your mini monsters. And one of the other things that they produced was the Monsterizer. Now, the Monsterizer, I've seen a couple of times at local toy shows. I picked it up, and a few of them actually were sealed. The seller at the time were selling them for around $120 to $130, which I thought was a little on the higher side until I started to look on places like eBay and realized that a sealed Remco Monsterizer from the 80s can go for a pretty hefty price. Unless you're getting one loose, unless you're getting one that's loose and missing parts, then you probably expect to pay anywhere from $30 to $50 for it. Of course, what we get now from NECA is a much more elevated version of the Monsterizer, lacking, unfortunately, though, sound, which is one thing I kind of wish that it could have had. Just think, though, if those electrodes could actually make a pulsating sound, I think that would be pretty cool. But that it actually has different stages of lights, I think is one of the coolest touches to this, that if you want to just have the front console lit up, you can do that. If you want to go all the way, though, and have the electrodes pulsating, you can switch the lever all the way up to the top. The only thing about the Monsterizer, though, is it's a very loud lever. To turn the wheel on the side to have the tabletop slide out, it's a very loud experience. You probably could see that and experience that in this review. I wish it was a little on the more quieter side, so that if I wanted to Monsterize in private, and obviously I didn't want to be waking up anybody in the house, I could do it. I'm probably not going to be doing this at night. I think I'm going to be Monsterizing my monsters during the day. This one is available right now over on NECA's retail site. It is going right now for $79.99. If that seems a little high, you can also go the route of 4 interest-free installments of $19.99. Big thank you once again to the folks over at NECA that did provide this sample of the Remco retro-inspired Monsterizer that we had the chance to have a look in this review. Do you guys remember collecting the original Remco Universal Monsters? Let me know down below in the comment section. Maybe you even have right now the original Monsterizer. Is it still part of your original childhood toys, or have you recently picked it up? Let me know down below. If you guys in the meantime did enjoy this video, do it a solid, throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more though? I hope so. Turn on the subscribe. Hit the subscribe, hit the bell notification, and the most important thing is come back. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.